Happy Pride Month, everybody. This is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about LGBT representation in the Star Trek franchise. So, Star Trek has been around since the 1960s and is still around till this day in the 2020s. And Star Trek was created by Gene Roddenberry, a visionary hope that society on Earth will be a better tomorrow and everything. A utopia and stuff where everybody is accepted no matter of their race, gender, sexuality, whatever. A better tomorrow, you know what I'm saying? And it's such a great vision. And what the Star Trek shows have done, even though half of the fan base have turned extremely toxic, so toxic that they forgot about Gene Roddenberry's teachings and stuff like that and try to pretend like Star Trek has never been about diversity or never been woke. Anyways, while Star Trek has explored many different topics and stuff like that, from like gender and like race, they've also explored the LGBT community. Sometimes not always in good taste. And that's kind of what this video is going to be about. It's just going to highlight some of the representation in the LGBT community, the good, the bad, and what the world was the writers thinking when they misrepresented this culture and stuff. And there are some really good episodes that deal with LGBT themes, but they weren't always executed very well. Now, some people have said that in the past, you gotta remember, it's been around since the 60s, the 80s, and the 90s. And so trying to tackle an LGBT theme was very difficult back in the day. And because of that, the writers and the showrunners and stuff had to kind of explore it, but then walk back just a little bit because they didn't want to piss off all the straight people that would have sent in letters and complained. And it's kind of like, was it because of that, or was it because just the showrunners and the writers just really didn't want to do that? Nobody will never really truly know. But there are still some really good LGBT stories within Star Trek. It's just over the years, fans have kind of well, they should have done this or they should have done that. And it's just, you have to remember the period in which they wrote this and stuff. I get it. It's not always going to be what you want, but you gotta just remember what decade it was. And, they could have went big and bold and completely went there and would have been ostracized, and most likely people would have complained, and then the shows would have got canceled and stuff. Now, since it's been so many decades of Star Trek, I don't exactly remember every single last detail of an episode or a character or whatever. And so there's going to be some I'm probably going to forget, and some I'm not going to go into much detail about, only because I truly don't remember those episodes. It could have been just because say it was Star Trek Enterprise, that 1/3 species episode, I've only seen one time. You know what I'm saying? And also, this video will also cover LGBT characters and the actors and actresses. So there might be some celebs I leave out only because I don't know they're LGBT, or because of the simple fact they're still probably closeted and everything. So with that said, let's start and go back all the way to the very beginning with Star Trek, the original series. George Takei, whose real name's not even George, is, okay, I can't pronounce this, Hosato Takei. while he plays Sulu in the Star Trek original series, he's actually a gay man. Now, when he was on Star Trek, this was back in the 1960s. So with him being Japanese American, he couldn't exactly come out in the 1960s. In fact, he came out as gay in 2005, where things were a little bit more LGBT friendly and stuff. Well, it was back then. It ain't no more. 20 years later, and now people are demonizing the LGBT community. I hate how like everything is going backwards in time, especially what's going on in this country. Like, I just don't get it. Anyway, so he couldn't come out back in the 1960s, but he is an openly gay man. And so, like, in terms of LGBT representation, he is technically the first, being that of an actor who is gay. Sadly, when it comes to his character never really did much on the show. Now, with the rebooted original series, with the rebooted series in the JJ Kelvinverse movies, John Cho took over the role of Sulu. And in the third and, as of now, final movie, they revealed that this Sulu is actually gay. And they did that only, and I do mean only, because the original actor is gay, which the original actor George took issue with that because he felt like, you know, they should have never made the Sulu character gay only because he is. Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 15, 11001001, the Baynor species. So they are a genderless species. Technically, they are non-binary. The Baynor are extremely intelligent, and one day they went to go update the computer on the Enterprise, and then they hijacked the ship because they needed, I think, the ship to fix something in their area of space, but instead of asking, they just hijacked it and stuff like that. This is technically the very first non-binary alien species we've seen in Star Trek Next Generation. There will also be a second alien species. Next comes Star Trek The Next Generation, the episode The Outcast. And this was all already in season 5 of all things, in episode 17. I was going to include the Star Trek original series finale where Kirk switches bodies with a woman, to where Kirk's mind is literally in the body of a woman. But that's not really, I don't think, too much of an LGBT thing. But, you know, some people might consider it, but I really don't. But like in this episode called The Outcast, this is where we get our very first introduction, well, most people's very first introduction to a non-binary person. And because I've never heard of non-binary, and they don't use this term back in the day, and this came out in 1992. Man, Star Trek was so good in the 80s and 90s. Boy, I swear to God, I love Next Generation. Next Generation is the best Star Trek series ever. Anyways, so like the Enterprise meet an alien species called the Janelle, or I guess it's Janelle, or Janelle, or Jaw, or something like that. I'm gonna say Janelle. And so in this, it's an alien species who don't like the labels of gender. They use the term androgynous race and everything back then. It's just like, you know, male and female is just unaccepted. They just, you know, they don't like that for whatever reason. I think they said it caused too much, like, you know, conflict between males and females and superiority and stuff like that. So they're basically a non-binary species that where they just don't see gender and stuff, which, as an outsider looking in, When I first heard the term non-binary, it was for people who don't see themselves as male or female. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'm learning something. Then all of a sudden, it seems to have shifted to where you can also be a person who consider yourself to be both genders and everything. So which is it? Is it people who don't consider themselves male and female, or people who do consider themselves male and female? Like in that time, Demi Lovato was kind of like, you know, sometimes I like to wear a dress and feel girly, so therefore I'm a girl. And sometimes I like to watch or play football and I feel like a guy. So I'm just like, I'm confused. like just make it make sense so people can understand, because you know what I'm saying, because it's kind of like we don't understand. That's the problem. Straight cis people don't understand, like, and it's kind of like, and that's one thing I've noticed about the LGBT community, is that y'all community seems to change every 5 years or so, to where things that are set in stone now get kind of tweaked and shifted a little bit, and it becomes very, very confusing and stuff. But anyways, so like with this episode, Riker falls in love with a person named Soren. And so when Soren starts to fall in love with Riker, all of a sudden they start to have urges of wanting to be female. Now Soren is played by a woman, and so in this alien species, it's forbidden to want to have these urges of wanting to be female and everything. So when somebody does do something like that, they have to be kind of have this machine that erases their memories of having these thoughts, but it just doesn't erase those memories. It erases like a lot. And so Riker literally, you know, tries to like, you know, break into like this alien facility with Worf and steal Soren and everything, because Soren is very adamant that Soren wants to be a female and stuff. She now no longer considers herself non-binary and wants to explore this path of what it is to be a female. So when he does, I forget exactly what happens. I think they threaten her family or something like that. Anyway, he goes to break her out, and when he does, her memories have been completely wiped. She doesn't even know, or they don't even know who Riker is. They are now no longer going by female. And so like he knows that he has lost, like, you know, somebody he really cared about. And not only that, but now this person is no longer the person they used to be. It's like their mind has been completely wiped, and now there is a new persona. And he blames himself for that. Now, some fans really enjoy this episode because it is a very good episode, and you know, it's a very intriguing episode and stuff. However, over the years, many people felt that, like, you know, Soren should have been played by, like, say, a male or something like that. And the actor himself, Jonathan Frakes, has, I think he said he lobbied, or he feels like also the Soren character should have been played by a male and not that of a female. He feels that if you're going to go as far as make this non-binary species, then do something that's out of the norm and just make, like, you know, the character a male and show two males kissing on screen. And that could have been a big thing for LGBT representation, he said once in an interview. The interview is somewhere on like YouTube, because I watched this one YouTube video and I don't remember who it's by, but it was always about like LGBT representation not being represented very well in Star Trek. Man, it's been a long time since I saw that video. Continuing with Star Trek The Next Generation is Season 7, Episode 2, episode Liaisons. So in Liaisons, we have an episode where these 3 alien ambassadors come to the Enterprise, and Picard is paired with that of the ambassador Vovell. And so when they're in the shuttlecraft, it crash lands on an alien planet. And it's a really, really, really bad like alien planet with like storms and this and that. And also, I can't remember, I think some other stuff. Anyway, he is found by a woman named Anna. And so Anna becomes very, very infatuated with that of Picard, despite the age difference. She's about in her late 20s, early 30s, and of course Picard's an old man and stuff. About like 60 or something like that. 60 or 50. I'll say something like that. And so, like, he has no idea why this woman is so infatuated with him. And she just wants Picard to love her and everything. And so, he's all like, look, I have to look for, like, the person I came with. He's injured, and she's all like, he's dead. I found his body. He's dead. And your shuttlecraft is, like, destroyed. And, like, you know, your communication system, like, I just ripped it out and everything. And he's just kind of, like, suspicious and is all like, you know, this is our only means of communication. You said you've been stranded on this planet for so many years. Why would you ruin this opportunity? Then he finds Varvel. And he's all like, I thought you was dead. That woman said you was dead and blah, 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 stuff like that. Then Picard becomes even more suspicious when he realizes that Anna is never in the same place as Varvel is. At some point in time, Anna's all like, just love me and everything. And she kisses him on the lips. And Picard's had enough. He knows something fishy is going on. Next thing you know, Anna transforms into Varvel. And Picard's a little shaken by this, kind of like, what the heck is going on? And it turned out that Varvel is a male alien, like a man. And Anna was like a female. So he told Picard that his species has the ability to shapeshift. And the reason for this ruse is because he's trying to learn about like human culture and everything. They sent 3 representatives to study that of human behavior, aggression, pleasure, I guess, like in food type sense, and the other one is like love. He was tasked with love because his species found the journal entries of like a stranded like woman and everything on an alien planet. Oh no, maybe it wasn't a woman. I think he found the stranded male journal, and this male found the female on this alien planet. And it was kind of like the Nightingale situation. This female attended to the wounds of the male and then later fell in love with him. And so their species doesn't understand what that means and everything. They don't understand like love and everything, or like certain emotions. So they try to act out on this and everything. And the reason why I added this to the list, no, Varvel is not in love with Picard, but Varvel is a man who turned himself into a woman and was willing to have some sort of sexual relationship with another man, and it didn't bother him. It didn't faze him. And when Picard found this out, he wasn't like, you know, disgusted by this, of the idea of kissing another man. It was just kind of like a whatever type thing, because of course they live in the 24th century where things like that don't matter to them and stuff. Star Trek: The Next Generation, Season 4, Episode 23, The Host. I decided to leave this one as third for Next Generation, and because this is the complete opposite of what happened with Picard and Anna. So in this one, we get our very first introduction into the Trill, an alien species that will be explored a heck of a lot more in Deep Space Nine. I'll bring up a little bit later. So in this, the Trill look a little different. We all know the reason why. And so like, the Trill is an alien species to where one of them is selected to host a symbiote. And this symbiote, you know, lives inside the Trill's body. And and in this one, it takes over their actual host personality. This was the template for Trills. It has later been changed. So in this one, Beverly Crusher falls in love with a Trill by the name of Odin. And so she's head over heels over this man and stuff like this, right? Well, there's an accident. And so, like, they have to transfer the symbiote into another host because the host body has died. There are no other Trill on board, so they put it in Riker, a human. And so Beverly is trying her best to avoid Odin because he is in Riker's body and has taken complete control of Riker's body. And she doesn't want to fall in love with Riker because that's her colleague. He's her commanding officer. And it's her friend's like ex and everything. But at some point in time, she does succumb to his advancements and stuff. Then they finally found a Trill host body for Odin. And to Beverly's surprise, because she was just waiting and waiting and waiting for this person to come through the doors. And when they did, it was a female. And Beverly is just kind of like, what the heck? She was expecting to be like another male host and everything. So here comes Odin in the female body. And it's all like, you know, we can be together now. And Beverly's like, I'm sorry, but you know, I forget exactly what she says, but the bottom line is Beverly don't like women. Beverly loves stick. And so it ends on that sad note. And you see the dismay on Beverly's face and everything. Now, over the years, this has been a topic of discussion. Many people have said that they were shocked and surprised and later disgusted by Beverly's, like, you know, whatchamacallit, what is it? They was disgusted by her behavior of not wanting to fall in love with Odin now that Odin is female. And they said that because this Star Trek show, they live in the 24th century, that she should have been accepted of that and everything. I see it both ways. Like, it's kind of like, hey, look, if she's not into women, she's just not into women. But on the other side, it's kind of like, yeah, they do live in the 24th century. And by this time, there is no prejudice of any kind. And people just accept people for who they are. I mean, you have humans falling in love, marrying and making babies with alien species all the time. So why should two women have a problem falling in love? So many people felt like this was tone deaf on the writers and everything. But you have to remember that this did come out in the, what was this, 80s or 90s? 1991. So there was no way in the world they was gonna tell an LGBT story like that and stuff. And it just is what it is. It's just, you know, a victim of like the decade they was in. Jonathan Del Arco. Now he is an actor who played Hugh, a Borg that was disconnected from the Borg hive. The actor is actually openly gay, and he is a guest appearance in 2 of the Star Trek Next Generation episodes and a couple of Star Trek Picard season 1. And so in terms of like Star Trek Next Generation, he's the first openly gay man to appear in the series and stuff. His character was really intriguing because, you know, he was disconnected from the Borg hive and he wanted to explore his humanity, but knew it will put, like, you know, the Enterprise at risk and like other stuff like that. I don't know much about like the actor. Star Trek First Contact. So First Contact is the second movie in the Next Generation lineup. And here we see the character of Lieutenant Hawk, a brand new character introduced into the franchise. And I remember seeing him thinking, who is he? Because normally, like, females drive, like, the Enterprise and stuff. But anyways, there's nothing about Lieutenant Hawk. There's no backstory. There's no nothing. He's just a character there who actually has screen time, gets to fight the Borg, and later gets assimilated and killed by Worf. Now, many years later, it has been rumored that Hawk was supposed to be the first openly gay character in the Star Trek franchise, or at least that on a Federation ship or something like that. However, it's also been rumored that there was backstory of his character being gay and all this character development, but then it later got scrapped in the final script. However, there's a person who worked on the movie who said this was never the intention. His sexuality was never explored. I don't know what the real truth is. Either he was or he wasn't. And so many people believe that the producer, Rick Berman, just decided to get cold feet because this movie came out, I think, in 1996, and was too scared to have like an openly gay character or something like that. Some people have speculated that it could probably be the actor himself. That the actor Neil, I'm not sure how to say his last name, Midduff. I guess that's how you say his name, Midol or something like that. Midon Gruff. I don't know how to say that man's last name. Like, I can't pronounce people's names. But anyway, I don't know. He's a very, 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 very religious person. I mean, like, extremely religious. He's so religious that, okay, if you ever seen his projects, you've noticed he's never kissed any, like, woman that's played his girlfriend or wife on screen. This is because he is married in real life and feels it's inappropriate for him to kiss another person on screen while he's married in real life. Now, I can respect that, because I told myself if I was to be an actor and if I had a girlfriend or if I was married, I would never kiss nobody else either. So with him being so extremely religious, some people think that, you know, a lot of religious people don't like the LGBT. Some people feel like he probably found this out and asked, can it probably be scrapped? We will never know. Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 4 Episode 5, Rejoin. So this is a Trill episode where the Trill are now firmly established and having a better storyline and better character development than what they did in Next Generation. And also, this is also supposed to kind of fix that first Trill episode of Next Generation when it comes to that of two women loving each other. So, in Rejoin, Jadzia Dax is like Trill. She's a female who has a symbiote in her. And the symbiotes, you know, they go from like male to female. It doesn't matter. Now, in this new iteration, the symbiote does not take over the host's body. The host is very much in control, but the host has all the memories of the symbiote. And so it is forbidden in Trill society that when a host gets a brand new body, that they, like, you know, are no longer allowed to see their ex, because it could be too many emotions. It could like corrupt the symbiote and stress it out and just all kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? However, Jadzia is reunited with one of the symbiotes, like exes and everything. A woman by the name of Liara is very much like, you know, like somewhat still in love with the symbiote and everything. And Jadzia is having the memories of the symbiote and starting to feel something for, like, you know, the symbiote's ex and everything. This was the first time in Star Trek history we ever got to see two women kiss. And this was a big thing because this came out in 1995 and you just really didn't see nothing like that. They had two women kiss on Married with Children. And I forget what year that was, but that was like early 90s and stuff. So it was very taboo to see something like this, but they decided to go there and didn't care what the censors thought in their thing. This was a bold step for them, and it paved to be one of the better episodes and a true representation of not just saying two females are in love with each other, but to have them actually be together and kiss each other and stuff. Now, of course, these two don't end up together because there are complications in the storyline. I don't really remember this episode all that well. I've probably only seen it twice, maybe 3 times in like my, like, you know, entirety and stuff. Now, the trail was always supposed to be like, you know, this, you know, society that it doesn't matter which way you go, straight, bi, like, you know, whatever. They're mostly just like a bi society if the symbiote is within like one of their hosts and everything. Now, the X was originally supposed to be cast by a male, but then they decided to change it to female because they wanted to course correct that Next Generation episode. So they had to clear it with like the studio executives and everything. That's because, and it's weird, they had to clear this with like executives because, you know, it's two women kissing. Like, that's just so weird. But you gotta remember, this was 1996 and stuff. And I think they hinted that that's supposed to be in a same-sex relationship in the first season, but they could never really explore that really. Dax was, I think, supposed to kiss like this one woman, but it just didn't happen for whatever reason. Now, in season 5, just 1 year after this, there was another episode where Dax and Worf are now like a couple, I believe. And Dax sees one of her exes. Well, not her ex, Cruzon's ex. Cruzon was the other host of the symbiote and everything. And while they're on Risa, Vanessa Williams plays a character named Andis or something like that. And, you know, one of the symbiote's like former exes and stuff. But there's no kissing scene or nothing like that, or no, oh, I need to be with you, but I can't be with you because, you know, the rules and stuff like that. Clearly, they said all they had to say in season 4, and they didn't want to tip the scale in season 5. Star Trek Deep Space Nine, season 6, episode 23, Prophet and Lace. This is an episode I'm not too familiar with. I've seen it only once, and I don't remember much about it. But it's an episode where Quark, a male alien, turns into a female and everything. And so this would be kind of considered the first transgender type episode. And like, kinda, I guess that one in Next Generation where that man turned into a woman, but you know, but this would be like the big major one where we know exactly what's going on. And it has not aged very well over time. This is considered one of the worst episodes of the entire Deep Space Nine franchise. Basically, it's like this. The beginning of the I have to read this offline because I don't remember this episode at all. So basically, Quark is sexually harassing one of his bartenders. And then the Grand Magus comes in and said like he lost his position of power because he wanted equal rights for women on their home planet. Because women don't wear clothes on the Ferengi homeworld and stuff. And they're considered lower class citizens. And so the Grand Negus, he is in love with Quark's mother and everything. So Quark blames his mom for all this crap that's happened because she wants to wear clothes. And so later on, she has a heart attack. And so they need somebody to talk and represent her. So Quark has a sex change, turns himself into a woman, and is trying to represent, like, you know, I guess the whatever women supposed to bring to the workforce of the Ferengi homeworld. While as a woman, he's constantly being like pursued and chased by this one horny man and everything, all throughout, like, you know, the episode and stuff. Later on in the episode, something happens where they're trying to reveal that, like, this, like, woman is really a man, and Quark's clothes falls off. And you don't see it on screen because, you know, this is back on broadcast TV, but, you know, the naked body is there exposed and everything. And so later on, after the reverse of the sex change, you know, still hormonal and everything from like the surgery, Quark apologizes for his mother and stuff like that. It's made to be a goofy, silly type episode, as all Ferengi episodes are. And because of that, they really didn't take this episode too seriously. And they used transgender people as kind of a punching bag to laugh at and stuff. And so people feel like this is a huge misrepresentation of transgender people, because they're literally there to just to like be like chuckled and giggled and laughed at and stuff. So yeah, I totally understand where people are coming from, because it's kind of the same way when, like, I don't know, like say you have like a black character in an all-white television show or movie, and that one black character is acting like a loud ghetto fool and everything because he's there for the amusement of like white people, or he's just there shucking and jiving and everything and just there for the amusement of, like, you know, other people and stuff. Or say like you have that one Indian or one Asian character in an all-white sitcom, and the Asian and or Indian character is constantly made fun of. Their culture is made fun of. They have a goofy sounding accent that's completely fake. And, you know, like that 70s show. Or like Jessie from Disney Channel. So I totally understand where people are coming from when they say this is like a bad episode and stuff. Star Trek Voyager Season 3 Episode 10, Warlord. So this is a Kes episode, and it deals with a warlord by the name of Terran, who somehow has placed his mind inside of that of Kes's body. Kes is female. I don't remember too much about this episode, other than I really like Jennifer Lynn's like acting in this. It does deal with, once again, like, you know, mind swap of somebody in somebody else's body, similar to that of the original series. They don't really explore that of an LGBT that much theme. I can't talk that much, because there's nothing in here that really suggests it other than an attempted kiss. So when Terran is inside Kes's body, he goes in to restart his relationship with Nori, and he goes in for like a kiss, but then they're interrupted. The kiss never happened. And so a lot of fans have wondered, why not? You know, just 1 year prior on Deep Space Nine, they had, you know, two females kissing and stuff. It's never been explained as to why they didn't want to like pull the trigger on, like, you know, this same-sex kiss and everything. Did they receive backlash from like a year prior? Who knows? Did the executive producer just not want to do it? Who knows? Did the actresses just not want to do it? Who knows? You know what I'm saying? But it's like a tease, but that's the closest to like an LGBT anything in all of Voyager's run. They've never really had one, to be completely honest. Yeah, the Doctor put his... Okay, so this happened in season 6 or 7. I can't remember the episode, but it's when the Doctor's trying to save the captain. So he has to sabotage the ship and do everything else. He's pretending to be B'Elanna. So he changed his matrix to look like her. In comes Tom Paris, who is B'Elanna's husband, and he gives her a kiss. Star Trek Picard, Raffi and 7 of 9. This is still one of those relationships that just came completely out of nowhere and have fans scratching their heads. See, the 7 of 9 character is actually from Star Trek Voyager. And in Star Trek Voyager, she was portrayed as straight, being in a relationship with Chakotay, a male, and having a romantic love interest in this other Borg in a kind of dreamlike state. And so 20-something years later, 7 of 9 joined Star Trek Picard. And in Star Trek Picard, it was referenced that she had some sort of relationship with kind of like this mob boss type woman and everything, who had Egypt killed and who she killed to avenge him. So showing that 7 of 9 is now like bisexual and stuff. Or something. I think that it was explained that they was in a relationship. But then the head scratcher came at the very end of season 1 finale episode, where all of a sudden you see Raffi and 7 of 9 holding hands and looking at each other in a romantic kind of way. And it's kind of like, huh? And the reason why everybody went, huh, isn't because 7 of 9 is bisexual, which is now established early on in the season. But like, I think Raffi's sexuality was probably never explained. I can't remember if it was or not. We know that she has a son that she's estranged from. But other than that, the head scratcher was, when did these two start dating or even start liking each other? Because these two, while being on the same starship, have never had any type of interaction with each other. They've never really shared any screen time with each other for the most part, and never spoke to each other. So people was just kind of like, when the heck did this happen? And so some fans felt like they was kind of like pandering a little bit and just decided to hook these two up. So after a while, it was revealed that what is it? The actor who played the former Borg Hugh, him and Jerry Ryan, who plays 7 of 9, are actually really good friends. And I think they joked around about, hey, wouldn't it be funny if 7 of 9 was in kind of like this like lesbian relationship with like Raffi? So I guess somebody pitched it to one of the writers or one of the showrunners, and they made it official and everything. But the thing is like, their relationship is kind of odd because it makes no sense, because once again, it was never built up and it was just kind of there. And because it was just out of a joke, the writers didn't know what the heck to do with them going on in season 2 and season 3. In season 2, they are still, I believe they're still in a relationship. But the thing is, they never get along. They always argue with one another. And it's just kind of like, and this what made fans also question, why are they even together? Because at this point in time, nobody knew the real reason why these two characters got together. Then in season 2, there's an alternate timeline where 7 of 9 is married to a man off screen, but this man dies off screen. And so, but her and Raffi are still together because, you know, they're outside the alternate timeline. They're trying to restore the timeline and everything. But all throughout season 2, all they do is just literally argue with each other. Then in season 3, they broke up off screen. And fans just kind of like, where the heck is this relationship going? And everything. But it turns out, I think the reason why they broke up is because Raffi was on a secret mission. So once again, they don't spend that much time together. They don't have that much screen time together. But then at the very end of the show, it's shown that 7 of 9 has now become a captain, and Raffi's going to be her first officer. And are they still together? Are they not? It's kinda up in the air. This was an experiment that just gone terribly wrong because the writers really and truly had no intentions of putting these two together. And because it's New Trek doesn't really explore anything all that well and do character development all that well. And so, like, it was a nice attempt, but their relationship never made no sense, especially between their ages and stuff. But then again, 7 to 9 likes older people. But it just never made no sense because the writers literally had nothing for them and stuff. And a joke is one thing, but to actually make it canon off of a joke just don't make no sense. And it's one of those things that if you're not fully committed to something, just don't do it. Because all this relationship shown was that it was literally just created out of a joke. And here are two like women who like each other but can't get along with each other and have a dysfunctional relationship. That's not something you really want to show when trying to represent somebody, you know? The Star Trek rebooted movies, new Spock, Zachary Quinton. So Zachary Quinton played Spock, and Zachary Quinton is an openly gay man. He came out in the year 2011. While the character of Spock remains straight, of course the actor is gay. Now, the actor came out in 2011 because of a bisexual teenager who took his own life. And the actor felt like, you know, what did he say exactly? Living as a gay man life without public acknowledgement is simply just not enough and stuff like that. And so, you know, that teenager's death really took a toll on him. And this is one reason stuff like this is why so many actors and actresses come out, because they want to help encourage other people that, hey, it's okay. You know, you can be who you want and you don't have to take your life. You have allies and stuff like that. He's also very critical of Kevin Spacey when Kevin Spacey decided to come out. And I'll get into that a little bit later when I get into the Discovery. Star Trek Strange New World Season 2. I'm not sure the episode number, but it's Ad Astra per Asperia. I don't know how to pronounce that either. It's the trial of Commander Una Chin Raleigh, better known as Number One. Now, her character sexuality has never really came out. I think they hinted she might have had a relationship with her lawyer, but it's never been like fully established. And while there are no LGBT characters on Strange New Worlds, except for this one villain, the episode where Una goes to trial has a lot of LGBT, like, you know, allegories in it and stuff. Now remember, Star Trek is all about allegories, which New Trek seems to have forgotten about, but Strange New Worlds has tried to be old school Trek. And so in the trial, Una, I forget her species names, but there are species that undergoes genetic modifications or genetic engineering. And that's a big no-no in Starfleet and everything. You're not supposed to, you're not allowed to be a Starfleet officer in the Federation if you had genetic manipulation and stuff. And I believe, I forget why her species has to get modified. It's because of some kind of reason, some type of, I think it's like a genetic flaw in their makeup or something like that. And the allegory for this is, of course, LGBT representation in the military, especially that of trans people and stuff. Because, like, at one point in time, you could be transgender and join the military and stuff in this country. But now, because of the new government administration, they have rolled back on that, and there are a lot of stipulations for that. I remember reading a long time ago, about a couple of years ago, that like they could no longer I think you can join, but you're not allowed to transition, because I think some of them were using their money to transition. And I just recently read something that where a transgender military officer is having a lot of their benefits like stripped from them because of the new administration and stuff. And so this was like a perfect allegory, because of the simple fact New Trek doesn't really do allegories. They just tell you straight up, this is right and this is wrong and everything. But here, you know, it's supposed to make you really stop and think without kind of like preaching to you in a way. You know what I'm saying? You're supposed to pick up on the messaging on which they have and everything. And the messaging is do not discriminate. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Nurse Chapel, and also Jess Bush, the actress who plays her. I completely forgot that the actress identifies as part of the LGBT community. She says her character is bisexual, but honest to God, I don't even remember, because I've only watched like Strange New Worlds once in its entirety. And if her character is bisexual, then that's an episode I completely forgot about. Jesse James Cattell, I think that's how you pronounce their name. This person is is a trans non-binary actor. That's what Google says, or actress. They say one way says actor, other says actress. Blame Google, I'm just reading. And they was in Star Trek Strange New World, I think season 2, as a villain, playing Dr. Aspen. I don't remember what this episode is about. I've only ever watched Strange New Worlds once in its entirety, despite owning the DVD, because, you know, after watching it on television, I'm not going to watch a DVD right after, so I'm just going to wait a while. And all I remember is this person was like a villain. And while it's great to have a trans representation on the show, because Strange New World really doesn't have no LGBT representation, did they have to make this person a villain? That's the thing. And that's the problem, is what a lot of Hollywood stuff is, that they take these diverse minority people and they just straight up turn them into villains. And people are tired seeing, like, you know, their culture represented as a villain to like straight white people, you know. Star Trek Discovery as a whole. Now, in case you haven't noticed, I skipped Star Trek Enterprise. Why? Because even though I've watched it, I don't think there are no LGBT themes or characters or actors in it that I know of. I was going to do the congenitor episode, but that's just a third species. So they have male, female, and congenitor. And the congenitor helps the male and female produce a baby. But that's not really an LGBT type thing. It's just a third species within a 2 species, like, you know, planet and everything. So now I'm getting to the last Star Trek series I've ever watched. I've never watched Star Trek Prodigy, so I don't know if there's any LGBT people on there. And I've only watched one episode of Lower Decks, and I told myself I'll never watch it again. And I never have. But Star Trek Discovery, while I do not like this show, like I flat out do not like this show, it is what caused me to start hating Star Trek and New Trek as a whole. But you gotta give it up to Star Trek Discovery. They are by far the most LGBT friendly out of any Star Trek series. Why? Because not only do they have LGBT characters, but they have tons of LGBT actors and actresses that make up their main cast. Sadly, however, and as I have stated in the past, Star Trek Discovery doesn't necessarily do the best job of always representation, and it really feels like at times they're just checking something off a list just to make certain people be all like, hey, see what we did, we're awesome, we're like, you know, progressive and everything. But then they tend to drop the ball on their characters, and it's just kind of like, okay, you made this big like show and dance of having this LGBT person on your show, but you're not doing nothing with this character. Like, they literally haven't appeared in over like 5 episodes. Like, where are they at? But I will say, nevertheless, there are some really good episodes and themes with the LGBT characters and actors and stars that they do have in this show. And LGBT people make up half of like the cast list and everything. That is very impressive because of the simple fact no other Star Trek show has done that. And like I said before, it's because it was in a different period in time. This show came out in 2017 and ended in 2024. And so because it was in 2017 and we was going through a new era in life where everybody was trying to be more progressive and more accepting and more woke and, you know, stuff like that, it allowed a lot of these characters and actors and stuff to get a job in this new show. However, there has been plenty of backlash by the anti-woke mob and everything, talking about you're pandering to like people and trying to push your agendas and messaging and blah, 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 and stuff like that. Yet these same people don't say the same thing when straight cis people push their agendas and things. I mean, take The Walking Dead, for example. In The Walking Dead, you had 3 tiny kid characters who all owned guns and shot zombies. And one of these people shot a bad guy in cold blood. If that's not pushing the Second Amendment agenda, I have no idea what is. You know what I'm saying? And but yet those same people who say, oh, they're pushing woke agenda or LGBT agenda or like diversity agenda, they've never complained about The Walking Dead having little kids own guns and shooting zombies and people and stuff like that. So these people are hypocrites and everything. Now, like I said before, there are plenty of characters, LGBT characters in Star Trek Discovery. And, you know, and plenty of actors. So first, Emily Coates, I think that's how you say her last name. She played, is it Keela Detmer? Now, technically, her character is part of the main bridge crew, which means her character should have been a main character of the show, but she's not. She's only a recurring star for all 5 seasons and stuff. Now, the character, we don't know her sexuality, and the character really doesn't do much of like nothing. I mean, much of, this is one of the reasons why I hate Star Trek Discovery so much. And we might have gotten like a tragic backstory one time, and she barely says, and she's barely there. So let's just put it like that. But the actress actually is a lesbian. In 2019, she came out and got engaged to her girlfriend in 2020, and I believe they did get married because I believe I saw a married picture of them and stuff like that. And so this is like, you know, the third openly gay, like, well, not the third, because like I said, the show has a tons on. But this is like one of like the a cast member who's openly gay since like, what did I say? Really since like the original series, because the movies are just the movies and Hugh is just Hugh, you know what I'm saying? And so it took like this long for them to cast somebody who is openly gay. Like, it took them to 2017 since Star Trek came out in like the 60s and stuff. Mary Wiseman as Tilly. So Tilly has never had a relationship on the show, and nobody knows her sexuality, but the actress is at least bisexual. I think she identifies as the Q word. I don't say the Q word. Back in my days, it was a slur. I've said this before, that's why I don't say it. However, as a straight person, I do not understand what that means, because there's a lot of celebrities that say they identify as the Q word, but they won't exactly explain what exactly that means or who exactly they will date. It's very confusing. Just help me, like, make it make sense, please. But she's bisexual despite being married to that of a man. And when it comes to her character doing stuff on the show, her character actually does a lot. She's very smart, but sometimes I feel like they was pushing her to be the next Will Crusher. But sometimes I feel like they pushed her a little too far. I love how she's smart, but she doesn't act like she's smart. But yet she's like one of the smartest people there. But sometimes they pushed her a little too far to where some people criticize. They're all like, okay, look. There was this one episode where she won a marathon, and you know, she is a heavier set actress, and I love big women and everything, but it didn't make sense how she won this marathon after racing against people who were way slimmer than her and this one muscular man. And she stopped the marathon to talk to this imaginary person, alien person, for like a long period in time. There's no way she should have been able to win that marathon, especially stopping the marathon to talk to like an imaginary alien person. So sometimes I feel like they kind of try to push her a little more than what she was capable of, because in the end of season 3, they had to digitally alter her uniform because they was gonna make her an acting commander. And it's weird because she started the show as a cadet. How the heck you gonna go from being a cadet? Now at the end of season 1, she becomes an ensign. But how at the start of season 2, she's an ensign, but then at the end of season 3, she's a commander? Like, you see what I'm saying? So fans saw what was going on, and they just kept trying to like push her higher than what like her character is capable of being. But I do like the fact that they actually gave her stuff to do. Oh, wait a minute. Tilly is more like Barkley than she is that of Wesley, because she's more of the, like, you know, don't have no self-confidence, but is really smart, messes up a lot, but is really smart. So yeah, she's more like Barkley than she is Wesley, my bad. Tig Norito as Jet Reno. So this character was introduced in season 2, and they was a recurring character in seasons, let's see, 2, I believe. No, there was a recurring character in season 2 and 3, but a main character in season 4 and 5. Now, Tig is actually a lesbian, and her character at first was never stated as sexuality, but fans kind of speculated based on the actress. But then in season 4, she mentioned she was married to a woman back in her own timeline, because remember they had to like jump like 1,000 years into the future and stuff. Now, when they introduced this character, I was extremely happy, because I'm like, yes, finally, we have a chief engineer on this show. This show has never had one. However, my excitement became dismayed because of the simple fact the character never really appeared on the show. And I'm just like, where the heck is she? Like, you know, they're in the future. There's nowhere she can really go because she doesn't have family in the future. So where the heck is she at? Episode after episode after episode will just pass by and we don't see her and stuff. And then when we do see her, she's only there to appear for like a few minutes and then disappear. Then when she does appear, she's always being rude to a male character, and especially a high-ranking male character like a commander, captain, or admiral. And this is modern day writing where they have females always be rude to male characters. And I've noticed that because her character is always rude to male straight characters, but nice to male gay characters and nice to female characters and stuff. So it made her character seem very unlikable for me and a couple of other people and stuff, because she's always being rude to certain people and not everybody else. If she were to be rude to everybody else altogether, then that'd be a little bit more accepting, but not really. But at least it'll be equal footing. And so, like, when she's also not being rude, she's being comedic and everything. Then in season 4, she had just a tiny bit more to do, especially when she got kidnapped. And we finally actually got to see her do a little bit of engineering type stuff. A little bit. That's the thing that pisses me off. She's the chief engineer, and when we first see her, she hooked these dying people up to all this equipment. So like, cool, she's doing some engineering stuff. She's really smart. Then after that, you don't see her really doing no engineering type stuff. And then in that one episode when she had a little bit to do, she mentioned some engineering stuff, like, okay, she actually is an engineer. Now in season 5, I don't know what the heck she does, because I've only watched half of season 5 and I don't feel like finishing it because I really hate this show. But this is the problem I'm talking about when it comes to their characters, whether it's recurring or main. They literally just become a generic recurring background character, where everything that made them interesting gets completely washed away and everything. And one of the reasons why the actress was never really on the show is because she was busy in her comedy stand-up routine. Now, she is supposed to be in the brand new Star Trek show, Star Trek Academy. How often is she going to appear in that? I have no idea, but it would be nice to see her, and it would be nice to see her doing engineering type stuff. Grey Tao, played by Ian Alexander. Now, Ian is a transgender man, and the character of Grey serves as the love interest of the character Adira. They're there to support the Adira character. Introduced in season 3, and when they introduce the Ian and the Adira actress, CBS decided to announce it like to the whole world online. This caused a lot of backlash because of the simple fact, of course, the anti-woke mob did not want to hear that, oh, Star Trek is announcing that they're introducing, like, you know, a trans character and a non-binary character. How dare they? How dare they? And everything. So, of course, those people got, like, pissed off and frustrated and stuff like that. And they started mentioning, because the thing announced that they was the first transgender and non-binary characters or actors or whatever on the show. And the anti-woke mob was all like, no, Star Trek has had characters like that before. And they just started listing off the alien species. But what they don't understand, they're not talking about the first transgender or the first non-binary. They're talking about the first ones to have like a major role in the show, being that of a main cast member and recurring character. But of course, these people don't care, and they push their own negative agenda and everything to try to sway the minds of people who are accepting and everything. And so, like I said a long time ago, that I feel like instead of announcing it to the world, just let people accept it for when they experience it for the first time, like how television used to be back in the day. Announcing stuff seems like you're trying to check something off a list and trying to make people be like, hey, see who we have on our show? Don't you love us now? Don't you want to watch our show more and more people in the community? That's how I feel like it's like doing and stuff like that. And when you announce it to the world, then you have to suffer the backlash and everything. Like, take that new Harry Potter series that's coming out. I've said before, the 3 young actors and that one actress who's playing like Ron, Hermione, and Harry should have never been announced to the world. People should have just experienced them watching them for the first time and everything. Because here comes the backlash of the Hermione actress being that of a mixed race and everything. So, yeah. Now, as for the character of Gray, in season 3, the character was portrayed a heck of a lot better. Gray is a Trill, and the symbiote, the host body got injured, and the symbiote had to go to somebody else before like it dies. So no other Trill on board. They placed the symbiote in Gray's partner, Adira. And so, like, of course, there was complications because humans and symbiotes just don't coexist. Like, their anatomy just don't work and stuff like that. And so, but somehow this has completely been retconned now. And so, anyway, there was always that emotional story of Adira missing their boyfriend and, you know, and never being able to be with them anymore and, you know, and was really loving them and stuff like that. But then all of a sudden, Adira would see, like, I guess, like the ghostly form of, like, Gray, which never made no sense. Because ghosts don't technically exist in Star Trek. But then, so, like, all of a sudden, when they went to this one holodeck, I guess your inner thoughts or something happened where it would manifest into like a real person. So we finally got to see Gray in like the flesh, and also like, well, kind of the holographic type flesh. And also we got to see that whole Trill ritual where you get to talk to your past selves or past hosts, and we got to see Gray. And it was this big emotional thing. Then in season 4, they decided, okay, let's give Gray an actual body. So they created an android body and everything and placed Gray's consciousness in that somehow. I forget how. And so it's like, okay, cool. Like, Gray is now in the robotic organic flesh because they're like a synthoid and everything. So now we're gonna get to see Gray and Adira together and interact and all this stuff, right? No. Because this is New Trek, and New Trek doesn't explore relationships that well and everything, or storylines that well. Gray literally became just a background recurring character who barely appeared on this show. And in one special episode, they got to connect with the ship's AI computer and everything. And like Gray spoke out about, like, you know, the ship computer deserves to have rights just like everybody else because they are technically a sentient AI being. After that, at some point in time, I think in season 4, maybe in season 5, I don't really remember which one, but probably season 4, Gray decides, I'm leaving the ship. I'm just kind of like, what the heck? Like, they don't do nothing with this character, and now they wrote this character off because New Trek writers never can think of what to do with their characters and stuff. And apparently the character left because they was feeling like alone because Adira is always working and this and that, and they needed to find their purpose in life, and they can't put the symbiote back in like Gray or something like that because it's not a real organic flesh body. And so I don't know if they reappear in season 5 because I never finished it, but it's just like I said before, they will create these interesting characters, then after they do that, they completely just forget about them because the show only revolves around one person, Michael Burnham. Ruon Tarka, played by Sean Dole. Now, Tarka is gay. Sean is not. Tarka was the villain of season 4 of Star Trek Discovery. Basically, he lived on, like, you know, very, 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 very far away. And so he transported. He lived in a place that was like really bad. I can't remember. I've only seen this season one time. He lived in a place that was like really bad and somehow got transported to like the other part of the galaxy. And because of that, he left like his lover and stuff like that and tried to get back to him. Something happened where there's this thing that, you know, Discovery has to like, you know, find and try to stop, because I think what it does, it either it engulfs like planets and it's like body, or transport them, or destroys them. It does something. I can't remember what, because I hate Discovery so much. All right, there's just this like supernatural thing that does bad stuff, but it's not really trying to do bad stuff. And because of that, Book wants it destroyed, and Tarka wants, I think, to use it to transport himself back to like his galaxy, and is willing to sacrifice millions just to get, like, you know, what he wants and everything. And the problem I have with this character is that not only like, he's a villain, he's LGBT and a villain. And it's just kind of like, I'm not saying that LGBT people can't be villains and stuff, but in the time where you're trying to like accept them and show that they're not bad people and stuff like that, this isn't a good look. And it's kind of similar to the Strange New World transgender villain and stuff. It's like they try to make him sympathetic by showing that he has a reason for doing what he's doing, but he's willing to miss the he's willing to like, you know, cost the lives of billions and everything with a B, just to get what he wants. And that's very, very selfish. Blue Del Barrow. So they play Adira Tal. And just like with Ian, they were announced as being the first transgender and non-binary stars in a Star Trek show. And I criticized this also because Blue had never told their parents yet. And so that's what the article I read. So they quickly had to tell their parents because CBS was going to announce this for the whole world, because CBS was really looking for brownie points, in my opinion, and stuff. Instead of letting this person, I don't even think they asked this person, like, you know, at first they was going to announce it. But then I think like somehow they found out, and, you know, they had it clear with the parents, and then it's CBS and network being CBS and everything. But anyway. Or was it Paramount? I can't remember which one. But anyway, the Adira character was really cool and interesting in season 3. Just like the whole, like, you know, Gray character. Then after that, the character kind of just became another generic background type character. And so the thing that was really interesting and intriguing about Adira was that Adira is a child prodigy and everything. They are essentially the new, like, Wesley Crusher, because they kind of failed with the whole Tilly thing. Adira is young, very smart and everything, and very ambitious and very driven. Like I told you before, Adira dated Gray, and Gray had the symbiote in him. And so there was like, you know, the ship like crashed or something like that. The symbiote needed to be transferred. They transferred in Adira, but there was complications to, with, like, you know, the whole Trill thing. I forget what those complications were, but there was complications. And so at this point in time, the whole Alpha Quadrant was just like inverts and everything. They would not interact with like nobody, no other species. They kept to themselves. It was a very dangerous time. There was no warp drive or anything like that, because there was no, I think that it was something, some type of fuel they needed. I forget what it was. But anyway, so Adira had no way to get to the Trill homeworld. Pretending to be part of this military force on Earth. When Discovery came around, she snuck, or they snuck aboard like Discovery, and they took her to the Trill homeworld. There, they had spent the entire episode with the whole Trill ritual and everything. But the Trill people wanted to reject that of Adira because Adira is not that of a Trill. But in a way, they do the ritual, and it's a very nice ritual and everything. You know, Adira got to see, like, you know, Gray and everything. And it was a really nice, like, touching type episode. After that, Adira stays aboard Discovery, and Adira becomes like a Starfleet officer, but never went through the academy training. Very similar to Wesley. Now, their characters started to grow and develop more when Adira let like some of the crew members know that, hey, I don't go by female, I go by them, they, because they never felt like they were either one because of the symbiote in them. This is the first time somebody has ever said that in Star Trek history. And of course, the anti-woke mob did not like hearing that. Also, when they just made Adira into just a generic background character, they took away what made Adira so interesting, that ambition, that drive, that, you know, forcefulness and everything. And they started to make Adira a little bit of the goofy comedic relief, similar to that of Tilly, who's smart, but lost that intelligent confidence that they used to have. Paul Stamets, played by Anthony Rapp. So he is one of two very first openly gay Star Trek characters. And the Stamets camera, I can't even say his name right now, I'm getting tongue tied. The Stamets character, he rubbed people the wrong way. Now, he had plenty of do on the show. And like, he was one of the smartest characters on the show, so that was great representation. He was also the pilot for the spore drive. They had to hook this device up into like his arms, and he had to navigate it through the marsupial drive, or wherever you call it. It's been a while since I watched this show, and it was a very dangerous thing to do, and it put a lot of stress on a person's his mind. And not only that, but it did damage to like his body and stuff. And he did that for the first couple of seasons, until I think they made him stop around season 4, and they let Book do it and everything, which I don't know why they made him stop. That's one of the things that made him very interesting and stuff. And his character is one who helped create the whole spore drive type thing. The problem with this act, not the actor, but the character of Stamets and everything, is that Stamets is very rude and snarky, at least for the first 2 seasons and stuff, or really the first one. The second one, yeah, is a little starky too. Like, he was just very, very, very rude to like everybody and stuff. And this was a bad look for LGBT representation, because here you have like really the only main gay character, because they killed the other one off and then brought him back, but like, and he's just rude to everybody. Then by the 3rd season, they started making him more friendly and everything. And then he became a much, much, much better character. But the first 2 seasons went for the full dark and gritty thing. Now, his character dated that of Hugh and everything, and later married him. And when Hugh died at the end of season 1, this really emotionally broke that of Stamets and everything. But he had to muster through, because he had to get everybody home through the whole spore drive jump thing. And so it really shows his determination and dedication, even in an emotional state, that he will do whatever it takes just to help his crew out. Then later on, they adopted that of Adira and stuff. But by season 4, his character started to do less and less, to the point where he just became, yet again, another generic background recurring character. Now, as for the actor, he accused Kevin Spacey of assaulting him at the age of 14. I believe him because after all these years, like what is he gonna gain other than justice? You know what I'm saying? Now, of course, Kevin Spacey has denied this over and over, and the original Egypt character from Star Trek Voyager cited talking about like, oh, you know, basically deny Anthony's claims because he's a huge Kevin Spacey fan. Supposedly these two have reconciled and everything, but I don't know. I could never forgive that dude. But anyway, sadly, Kevin Spacey has won his trial. Why? Thanks to the help of Elton John. Why? Because Elton John testified on Kevin Spacey's behalf because him and Kevin Spacey are really good close friends. Let me repeat that in case you did not hear me the first time. Pop gay icon legend Elton John testified on behalf of Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey is a man who has been accused of assaulting multiple teen boys. And Elton John testified on his behalf because they're really good friends and helped him win the trial. Suddenly, Elton John did some skeletons in his closet and stuff. Dr. Hugh Colbert, played by Wilson Cruz. Both the actor and the character are gay. I left these two for last because I've already explained my frustration with the writing of this character. So, he is like one or two of the like openly gay characters on a Star Trek franchise. His character is dating Stamets and then later marries him. And the thing that really frustrates me about this character is that they literally just do what Hollywood always does. They make the person of color the love interest, and then they barely do anything with that person, but they want to show representation of a person of color by dating that or being married to that of a white character. Then at the end of season 1, they straight up killed this dude in cold blood and everything. He discovered that Ash was really a Klingon, and so he got his neck snapped and everything. And fans cried like foul on this because it's kind of like, whoa, not only did you kill a man of color, but you killed a gay man of color and everything. You literally fridged him, which is a term used for a lot of like minority characters, especially the LGBT. Killing off a gay character is a trope that Hollywood does a lot. And before they killed him off, he really didn't do too much doctory type stuff like in most Star Trek shows would do, which really frustrates me and everything. And so like they killed his behind off. Then halfway into the second season, they brought him back. Was this the original plan all along? Nobody knows. Was this because fans were pissed off and outraged? Nobody knows. But they brought him back. And when they brought him back, he was no longer a doctor because, okay, here's the thing. They brought him back by means of cloning him. The marsupial network and everything, the spore drive, somehow found his body, cloned it, and brought him back to life that way, I think. I don't think it actually brought his corpse back to life, but hey, whatever. It's been a long time since I watched that. And when he came back, he was agitated and irritated, as one would expect to be, because he died. And the person he was agitated at the most was the person that killed him, going as far as to beating his behind and everything. After a while, he learns to forgive Ash, and later on restarts up his relationship with Stamets and everything. Then come by the third season, he's in the future and with everybody else. And this is where he literally becomes another recurring background generic character. They didn't know exactly what the heck to do with him because after they got rid of him, they brought in this new doctor. Once they brought him back, they got rid of the other doctor. And so now they're constantly, like, I've noticed something. They're constantly making this character going on away missions that a doctor normally would not go on. This is a trope sometimes in Star Trek because the doctor is barely seen on the show because they're in sick bay. So they kind of just forces them into, like, you know, these away mission type things. And it's kind of like, why is he there? He's a doctor and he's not treating nobody on these away missions. And I just don't get it. Then they decided, hey, we're gonna make him into a counselor. And his character literally said, I am the in these circumstances, I am the best one suited for the situation. First of all, no, he's not, because he's a medical doctor, not a counselor. Second, there is a Starfleet there and they have counselors in the future. Why didn't they just grab one of those? So now he's here to hear everybody's problems. And while this gives his character something to do, this is the only reason why they made him a counselor, because they needed him something to do. They should have had him do medical stuff. He is the only doctor in history who has never saved a planet from, like, a plague, never unfused two alien species that somehow fused together. He never does that dramatic medical drama type stuff that other Star Trek doctors do. He's literally just there. And yes, you know, him and Stamets are married and they adopted Adira. But he doesn't do any doctor type stuff, and that really frustrates me. They do give him stuff to do, but after a while they just didn't know what to do with the character, as they do with all their characters and stuff, because this show only revolves around one person, Michael Burnham. So that is a history of the LGBT representation in the Star Trek franchise from all the Star Trek properties I have watched. Like I said before, I have not watched everything. There are some things I refuse to watch, so I don't know what they do with those. And currently Strange New Worlds has like 3 more seasons before it officially ends after season 5. So Star Trek has had a unique time in history when it comes to LGBT representation, restricted by society, you know, over the decades, because there were just some things they were not allowed to touch on. They tried to, but could never really fully go there and stuff because they were too afraid. And, you know, it's quite a shame. Now they have the opportunity to explore some of them storylines that they was too afraid to fully go there, but because new Trek writing sucks, they still have go there, but don't fully go there. Happy Pride Month, everybody. This is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about... Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.